welcome to this SOLIDWORKS Manage 2020 webinar. My name is Scott Ellery. I am an application expert for Javelin, and I'm also a data management specialist. So I specialize in SOLIDWORKS PDM and SOLIDWORKS Manage. So today, what we're going to go over is a little bit of what's new in 2020, some of the key enhancements. As well as a very brief overview on what Manage is. It's still a pretty new product to SOLIDWORKS. It's not new. It's been around for quite a while, but to the SOLIDWORKS portfolio, it's only been a couple of years. And just kind of see where it'll fill the void in your data process today, and some of the things that it can help with. So I try to keep this as short as possible. I know you guys have a lot to do, so it should be about 20 to 30 minutes, and I'll try to leave some time at the end for questions as well. So let's get going here. And there we go. So kind of before we get into the enhancements in 2020, just a little bit of what Manage is all about. And kind of just a brief overview of what it is. So it can help us in a lot of different areas of our data management requirements. Certainly the most popular is project management. This is something that we haven't really been able to do with any other tool from SOLIDWORKS, especially connected project management, full extended bill of materials management, process control without the need of things like files and stuff like that to do our automation. And integration. So integration, out of the box with PDM, but also integration with things like ERP, MRP systems, other data sources, Access, Excel, text files, you name it, and we can get all of that information into one spot. And that's a really important thing with Manage, is really you want to be able to go to one environment for all of your data. You don't want to have to jump around into multiple systems. And when we have that information in one spot, we can aggregate it, we can take it, and we can visualize it, utilizing the real-time dashboard and reporting capabilities in Manage, which are incredibly powerful. So it's a huge benefit to be able to get those dashboards. They're up to the minute or sometimes up to the second, depending on how you want to update them. And they allow you to make informed decisions quickly with the data that you have. You're going to be able to easily interpret data from multiple areas. And whether it's an engineering change or an RFQ, or a non-compliance report, you're going to be able to make decisions based on that very quickly. So what we're going to go over today is we're going to start with integration. Okay, so there's been some enhancements in 2020 from the integration standpoint of things, integrating into new software as well. Then we're going to jump into project management. We're going to see some of the enhancements under the project side, the big heavy hitters there. Moving into process control. Some heavy hitters there with things like what we can do with affected items now, and also things like sub-processes, and we'll see how those work. And then we're going to finish up with sharing data. So we've got a lot of cool new tools within Manage to be able to share things like dashboards, outside of the Manage environment, as well as there's been a lot of efficiency and capability added to the web client. So if you're not necessarily inside the building, or you're not running a supported machine on Windows or anything like that, certainly you still have access to the same Manage interface that everybody else would, and you can do that over the web. So we're going to start with integration. So one of the biggest enhancements in Manage in 2020, in my opinion, is the Outlook integration. So we can now save emails directly to records or create new records from an email directly from within Outlook. So all we have to do is go to the add-in in Outlook. We click add to new record or create new record. It's going to pop Manage open for us, and we can now append that to a project or a record or a process or what have you. This is going to allow us to very quickly and easily share these emails where they need to be shared, and it's going to make it so that we don't have to jump out of Outlook into Manage, find what we want to do, and then get the email in from there. So it's a very quick straight shot directly into Manage to be able to pop that in there. And even once we're inside of Manage, if we want to be able to find that, everything is collected under the email tab of the record. So if I go, we can kind of separate it out by different file folders depending on what we're actually appending. And double click it, it'll pop it right open. So this is a very nice enhancement. This I see being really important for things like surveys, or if you do any kind of VOC stuff like voice of the customer on your projects. This is an easy way to grab that data that's coming back and append it to different projects that it might apply to, which is pretty cool. The nice thing is as well is that this information is also available in PDM. So there is a Manage add-in for PDM. It's been there right from the beginning. It did get a bit of a refresh in 2020 to make it a lot more efficient and functional. So we do have full access to those emails. We also have access to the bill of materials as it appears in Manage. So if you've added any kind of records within Manage to the BOM that don't actually exist as modeled parts, you're going to be able to see that, which is fantastic. And also all the where use capabilities and any task assignments and stuff like that are all available right on that Manage tab within PDM. So if you are a designer that doesn't necessarily need to be in the Manage environment, you still have access to all the great information that is bidirectional between Manage and PDM directly in the PDM interface, which is pretty neat. Okay. So the integration, this just makes things very, very streamlined. It's a very powerful way to be able to stay within the fewest amount of environments possible, not having to jump through hoops to get information to where you need to get it. So moving into project management. So this is definitely a cornerstone of Manage. It's one of the main pillars, and this allows us to get that connected project management going, where we have full connection to all of our PDM data, all of our project data. There's no siloing between different softwares. So the first big thing in projects is now we can import in XML templates from other systems. So if you're using a disconnected project system, maybe it's Microsoft Project, maybe it's Smartsheet or something like that, you can export your project on XML, and it's going to bring in all of your stages. It's going to bring in your whole Gantt chart. It's going to bring in your resources, all that kind of stuff. And then from there, you can continue on within Manage. So things like starting assigning tasks and all that kind of stuff. So it's a great way to start your project, especially if you already have templates completed in another program. And most of the time when we do migrate into a more connected environment like Manage, there are these little bits and pieces of project management, and we've got our EC management happening here that kind of come together, and we need to be able to bring that information in. And this is just a really easy way of being able to import that in and get going right away without the need to recreate all of those templates. We also have a load of new different charts, so we can really customize the layout of our project management and see it the way we want to see it. So we've got things like load charts, PERT charts, network diagrams, a number of different ways to visualize our project information. So it allows just a little bit more information to let you customize the way that you see your projects. And on that note, there's the new capacity planning capabilities in 2020. This is a big one. So if you want to be able to see, everybody working on a project, what capacity are they at? What is their load like? This also takes into account holiday time. This takes into account absences as well. And you're going to be able to see who's at capacity and who's not, just in case you need to, have any more tasks you might need to assign in a project, or maybe new work comes along that you need to put on a specific resource. You're going to be able to visually and easily see who can handle new content and who might be kind of to the brim. And if you give them any more, they might look at walking out the door. So certainly we want to make sure everybody is, under 100% capacity or near it. And this is a great way to do that. So this is really, really exciting. So task management, this stuff is vital in Manage. Being able to assign tasks is huge, especially when they're connected to all of our different resources and data. So in 2020, it makes us a lot easier and more efficient. So we can have what are called task templates. So essentially, if we want to assign a task to someone, or maybe it's a project or an individual, or maybe it's on a process, doesn't really matter. We can create the new task. And then we can configure it as a template. So these are for tasks that we always apply at different project levels. So during projects, there's going to be things that always need to be done. And you can preset them in projects, but this is a great way to have, preset checklists, preset subject lines, preset hour allocations, and then you can just use them on the fly whenever you need to, right? So you can see here we've got a task template. In this case, it's for a simulation. And the cool thing is too, so we could save this, we can now use it as a template, but if we needed to adjust it in any way, so in this case, maybe add specific information to the attached items, we can still do that. So we pop the template in, we add what we want, what we're talking about, we hit assign and we're done. So it's going to save us a lot of time when it comes to creating those different tasks and templates. So those are the two big things in projects. Another thing with projects as well is the interface has been a little bit refreshed. So if you're using project management now in Manage, you may find it looks a little bit cleaner, and it's got a little bit of a different layout, but just a little bit easier to absorb the information as well. Right. So again, big thing with project management, connection. Everything's connected, everything's updating, everything's real time. So, you're assigning tasks as they're being completed, you're getting a roll-up of your whole project, and you're going to know whether you're on schedule or not. So, process control. So, process in Manage is very similar to workflow in PDM. It looks very similar if you've ever seen a workflow or put one together as an admin in PDM. They are essentially, you have states and you have transitions. It's very visual. And the big difference between process control in Manage and workflow in PDM is that process control in Manage, one, does not have to have a file to run it. So if you're using it for an engineering change and you want to start an engineering change, you just start it. You don't need to start with any kind of file. And there's full visibility on it. It's not just a magic thing behind the scenes that automates everything. So everybody's going to be able to see where we are, where we've gone through, who's responsible for what step. It's a lot more connected and collaborative. So, these are a major part of Manage. They're used in all different types of areas. Whenever we need any kind of structured and controlled change, process is where we do that. Okay. And we can use processes for a ton of different things. They can be part of the sales cycle with things like RFQs and stuff like that. They can be part of engineering with engineering change, new product introductions, non-conformance. The sky's the limit when using processes. Now, what we're going to do, and what we're going to see with the new content, we're going to start an engineering change. So when we start a process, we can have affected items or items that are going to be affected by this process, right? So in this case, if we put together an engineering change, we have to know what's going to actually change. So we can put in the main item that may be a part of our engineering change. And in 2020, we can easily find any related items to that main item that we've put into the affected items list. So if we just right click on it, we can see add related records. We can see anywhere that this, in this case, this file is being used and any other files that may reference that file. So if we change it, it may impact other record types. And we want to be able to know that. And the cool thing is too, is we can continue doing this. So if there's another file impacted, we can run the related record on that and make sure that we capture everything quickly that's going to be changed by this engineering change. We can also in 2020 add special objects to affected change items. Special objects are anything that's specific to a project or a process. So things like risk, if you're capturing risk on a project or you're capturing project issues. Before in 2019 and earlier, these couldn't go through any kind of approval process or any process at all. And in 2020, they can now be added as affected items to different process types. So if you have to say, we think this is going to be a risk, but I'd like to have it approved to make sure it's actually risk on this project, we can do that in 2020. The other thing with process management as well is sometimes you're going to have multiple items going through an approval or an engineering change, and they may have to go through at different speeds, or they may be going through different routes of a process. And that's why we've got sub-processes in 2020. So the way sub-processes work is you can specify what's going to go through a sub-process when you create the process, the main process, or the parent process. And then each of those affected items go through their own process, and the top level will essentially track all of that. So for instance, you may have, in this case, an express engineering change and a standard engineering change. Maybe half your items need to go through an express one, and maybe half your items need to go through a standard one. This is going to allow you to have it go through at its own pace. We're also going to be able to monitor everything that's in a sub-process through the sub-process tab. And then we'll be able to see what everything has gone through and been completed, the full record of decision on all of those sub-processes, and then we can close out the parent process. So just an easier way to be able to manage multiple files going through their own processes. So those are the two big ones in process management. Again, these are for controlled change in your process. I'm sure most of you guys out there, you probably have SOP or you have a flow chart that you've put together that people are supposed to follow, but it's very, very easy to circumvent that and just go around it because it's faster to just do it this way. But somewhere along the line, that SOP is there for a reason. It's going to break down. Processes make sure that you can't skip a step. To make sure that you get everything that's required for downstream, to make sure that everybody has the information they need at their fingertips. So the last part that I want to go over for the what's new is sharing our data. So sharing our information externally to other employees, sharing our information externally to contractors and other customers. There's really a solution for everything, and it's all out of the box with Manage. Everything from dashboard viewers, which we'll go over, to the web client, and the web client has been greatly enhanced in 2020. So the first thing I want to go over is the dashboard viewer. So this is brand new in 2020. This is independent from the Manage environment. It can be installed independently. And really, this is for running on kind of community monitors. So if you've got a main computer sitting or a main monitor sitting in engineering, you want to be able to monitor engineering information in real time. Maybe you've got something on the manufacturing floor. If you want to see what's going on with different manufacturing levels and all that kind of stuff, you can use the dashboard viewer to see all that information. And the nice thing is too is that you can set the refresh rate on this. You can have a refresh every 10 seconds, up to every hour, however interval you need. You're going to be able to do that with the dashboard viewer. So this is a really great new enhancement because it's really, really thin. You don't have to go through and install the full Manage environment on anywhere you want to be able to utilize this. A great way to share our data as well, and even work external to our company, is the web app. So last year we started with the Plenary app, which was in beta until this year. And now instead of having two different web apps like we did last year, it's all in one environment. So you have the Plenary web app, which is for people that are internal to your organization that just may work from home, or they may be working on a Mac or something like that. And that gives you access to pretty much everything that you get in the full client. Then there's also a targeted web app. And what that's for is for anybody external to the organization, contractors, customers, people that you want to have controlled access to different parts of a project. So if you want to do a design review with a customer, or you want to allow a supplier or manufacturer to have access to things like drawings and parts of a project, that's more of a targeted web app. But everything's in one spot now, so it's a lot easier to control. One new enhancement as well to the Plenary web app, we have access to things like all of your work and task assignments, as well as full project control, deeper integration with PDM, and full process control. So you can see here, I can see all of my projects in the web app. I can open my project up. I have access to all the information that I would have in the actual Manage client. And I can make changes from here. I can make changes to the schedule. I can assign tasks. I can update different fields. And all of that stuff's going to get pushed right back to Manage. This is also a great tool for salespeople. If salespeople are out in the field, they're not always in the office. You want to be able to, you just went to a customer's, you want to put in a quote or an RFQ, you can start it up right from your phone or your laptop, get that going right away, and it'll kick off the process directly back in the Manage environment within the office. So this is a great, great tool if you're working external to the company. And of course, we also have full access to all of our processes. Okay, we can start processes from here. We can add affected items. We can do check-in and check-out from PDM files, and of course, we can continually send things through different stages of the process. So we can do approvals and send things to the next step without physically having to be within the walls of the company. So huge enhancement on the Plenary web app side of things, and much easier to keep your entire team connected. Okay, so that's a pretty brief overview of some of the heavy hitters in 2020. If Manage is such a great product when it comes to solving the issues that we've never been able to solve before, keeping all of our data connected. And I think with these enhancements, all it's doing is making it even more efficient, even easier, again, to make those decisions that we have to make on a day-to-day basis. So what we'll do now is I'm going to go check and see if we have any questions. If there are any specific technical questions that might just take a little bit too much time to answer right now, we can take them offline for sure. Otherwise, thank you very much for attending the webinar. So all right, thank you very much.